Hi guys, welcome back to Calc4Life videos. In this video series we're going to be doing some Algebra 1 videos. Specifically in this video we're going to talk about exponent properties. So basically learning exponent properties are very important, especially they're going to make your job easier and also they're going to help you simplify things a lot. The very first property that we're going to learn is product rule. So in this case we're going to see two powers with the same base being multiplied. So in this case what we need to do is very simple, just add up the exponents, because multiplication implies addition when it comes to exponential expressions. So basically a to the power of x times a to the power of y is going to be equal to, all you need to do is add up these two little tiny exponents, and the result will be a to the power of x plus y, as you can see. Then let's move on to the second property, quotient rule. In quotient rule we're going to see two powers with the same base being divided. So in this case division implies subtraction for exponential expressions, so that's why we're going to subtract this little tiny exponent. So the result is going to be equal to a to the power of x minus y. So in the next slide I'm going to show you a lot of examples about this. The next property is power rule. In this case we have a power and then we're going to raise this power to another power. So in that case multiplication kicks in. In this case we're going to multiply these two tiny exponents together. The result is going to be equal to a to the power of x times y. Okay. The next property is power of a product rule. In this case we're going to have two powers being multiplied inside of this parentheses. Then we're going to raise this product to the same power. So in this case separately we're going to raise each of the term in this parentheses to the same power. So it's going to be equal to a to the power of x times b to the power of x. In the next property we see power of a quotient rule. Okay, so in this case, inside of this parentheses, what we see is two numbers being divided, and also this result is raised to the same power, which is x. In this case, we're going to raise each term to the same power separately, and also division with division. So a over b parentheses to the power of x is going to be equal to a to the power of x divided by b to the power of x. Okay. The next thing that we're going to learn is a negative exponent rule. In this case, whenever we have a negative exponent, as you can see, a to the power of negative x, and we can convert it into positive exponent by moving this negative x to the denominator as being positive exponent, and we're going to put 1 over a to the power of positive exponent. So a quick example about this. For example, if I have x to the power of negative 3, so this negative 3 is going to get moved to the denominator, and we're going to put 1 over here, and this whole thing is going to get moved to the denominator with negative 3 as being positive. Okay, so it's going to be equal to x to the power of 3. Okay, so we've talked about all these properties, so it's now time to do some problems. Let's set them in motion. So in the first problem, what I see is 2 times m squared times 2 times m cubed. In this case, what we need to do is first we're going to group the constant numbers, so we get 2 times 2 times, then I'm going to group the, let's say, like terms with the same base. So m squared times m cubed. So we know that 2 times 2 is 4 times m squared and m cubed. So they have the same base and they're being multiplied. So what do? So we add up the exponents. So it's going to be equal to m to the power of 2 plus 3, which is equal to 5. So 4 times m to the power of 5. In the second problem, we have a power which is squared, x squared, inside of this parentheses, and then we are raising this power to the power of 0. In this case, remember that multiplication kicks in, so we're going to multiply these two little tiny exponents. So we get 2 times 0, x to the power of 2 times 0. So we know that when you multiply any number by 0, you get 0. So it's going to be equal to x to the power of 0. So when you raise any number or anything to the power of 0, the result is going to be always 1. Okay, so let me use a different color. So let's continue to question 3. In question 3, we have division, so we can apply the quotient rule. So, but before that I need to separate this 1 over 4. So 1 over 4 times x to the power of -1 minus, so we're applying the quotient rule, x to the power of -1 minus 4. Okay, so the result is going to be equal to 1 over 4 times x to the power of -1 minus -4 is going to be equal to -5. But you don't want this, negative exponent. Okay, so all you need to do is get it moved to the denominator with positive exponent. So the result is going to be equal to 1 over 4 times 1 over x to the power of 5. Okay, so remember how we do this from the previous slide. So the result is 1 over 4 times 1 over x to the power of 5. That's the most simple form of this. Okay. In question 4, we got some things being multiplied inside of the same parentheses, and these things are being raised to the second power. So in this case, we're going to apply the product of a power rule. We're going to raise everything to the same power. So I'm going to raise x squared to the same power, which is 2, times I'm going to raise y to the power of -1 to the same power, which is 2. So let's simplify it. So in this case, if I raise any power to another power, in this case we're going to multiply these two tiny exponents. So we get x to the power of 4, because 2 times 2 is 4, x to the power of 4 times -1 times 2, we get -2, y to the power of -2. Let's say you don't want any of this, any exponent happening right here, so you want to convert it into positive exponent. So all you gotta do is just get it transformed to the denominator. So x to the power of 4 divided by y squared. That's the final answer. Okay. So in this case, again, we see two things being multiplied, and they're being raised to the same power, which is -1. So in this case, I'm going to raise everything to the same power. So 2 to the power of 4, 2 times x to the power of 4 to the power of -1 times y to the power of -3 to the power of -1. So let me quickly erase this part. Okay. So, and also in this first parenthesis, we got the same thing. We got two things being multiplied and being raised to the same power, -1. So I'm going to raise everything to the same power. So 2 to the power of -1 times x to the power of 4 to the power of -1 times y. In this case, I'm going to multiply these two tiny exponents, so we get -3 times -1 is +3, so it's going to be equal to y cubed. Then let's deal with this. So 2 to the power of -1, so it's going to be equal to, remember that we're going to move this negative exponent to the denominator, so it's going to be equal to just 1 over 2 times x to the 4 times -1 will be x to the power of -4. Again, we don't want any negative exponents, so we're going to move it to the denominator, so we get 1 over x to the power of 4 times y cubed. Okay, so let's simplify everything. Let's multiply whatever we see across the top. Let's multiply them. So 1 times 1 times 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times y cubed is y cubed. Divided by, we got 2 times x to the power of 4. 2 times x to the power of 4. Okay, that's the final answer for question 5. Okay. Alright, so for question 6, we got two things being multiplied. Okay, x squared times y to the power of -4 times x cubed times y squared. In this case, I'm going to group the things with the same base. So what I mean is, let me show it to you. X squared times x cubed, so they got the same base, times, I group them together. So y to the power of -4 times y squared. Okay. So in this case, x squared is being multiplied with x cubed with the same base. So what do we do? Remember that addition of these tiny exponent. So we get x to the power of 5 because 2 plus 3 is 5 times y to the power of negative 4 times y squared. Again, same thing, they're being multiplied with the same base. So you need to add up the little tiny exponents right here. So it's going to be equal to negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2. Again, we don't want this negative exponent. That's up to you. You can leave the answer like this. That's also correct answer. But if you don't want this negative exponent here, so you can move it to the denominator. So the final answer is going to be equal to up here x to the power of 5 over y squared. That's the final answer. Okay. Then in question 7, so we got division. So 2 times x to the power of 4 times y to the power of negative 4 times z to the power of negative 3. So basically we're going to group everything. So we got x base, we got y base, we got z base, and we got also division of this constant number. So we need to group them together. So what I mean is, before that, I'm going to show it to you. Before that, I'm going to clean up the boards really quick so I can create myself a space. I'm going to do it over here. So I'm going to group 2 over 3 first, times I'm going to group x to the power of 4 over x squared, times I'm going to group y to the power of negative 4 with y to the power of negative 3, times, and I'm going to group z to the power of negative 3 with z to the power of 4. Okay. So let's deal with each of them separately. So 2/3 times, again we're going to apply the quotient rule. So whenever we see division, that implies subtraction. So 4 minus 2 is 2, so it's going to be x squared times, again we're going to apply the quotient rule. Negative 4 minus negative 3, so there's 2 negative signs that becomes positive, so negative 4 plus 3, still it's going to be negative 1, so basically y to the power of negative 1 times, right here, negative 3 minus 4, it's going to be equal to negative 7, so z to the power of negative 7. So now let's move all the negative exponents to the as positive exponents to the denominator. So the result, my final result, is going to be equal to 2 times x squared divided by 3 times y times z to the power of 7. That's going to be my final answer. Okay. Alright, so we got one final question, which is question 8. So in question 8, we're going to follow the same strategy as we did in question 7. So we're going to group everything together. So when I do that, actually it's going to make my job a lot easier. Okay, so, and understand better. So let me clean that really quick. Okay. So I'll do question 8 up here. So again, I'm going to group the constant numbers with constant numbers. So 4 over 3 times, I got m to the power of 4 and m squared. So like, think about it like a like terms. Okay? So m to the power of 4 over m squared, because they got the same base. Okay? Times n cubed divided by n squared times p cubed divided by p to the power of 4. So now we're gonna cope with each of them separately. So 4/3 times. So again, we're gonna do subtraction, because whenever we see division for exponential expressions, that implies subtraction. So 4 minus 2 is 2, so m squared times, same thing, n to the power of 3 minus 2, which is 1, times p to the power of 3 minus 4, which is equal to p to the power of negative 1. So p to the power of negative 1. So I'm going to move this negative exponent to the denominator as being positive exponent. So 4 times m squared times n divided by, so basically I'm multiplying things on top, across the top actually, and 3 times p. So that is going to be my final answer. Okay, so in this video, guys, we talked about exponent properties. So we talked about I guess 8 properties, we talked about 6 properties, I'm sorry, including the negative exponent rule, and also we've solved 8 problems about these exponential properties to practice. So in the next video, I'm going to be mentioning about fractional exponent. So please stay tuned. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.